Hello there, welcome to the Football Block. My name is Brandon. Today we have another episode of the Weekend Roundup, another episode of News Bits. And as always, we're going to look at everything that has happened in Europe's top 5 leagues or in the top leagues in Europe. And I'm going to give my reactions to that and give you a little analysis of what happened. Usually we start off in England with the Premier League, but today we have a huge matchup outside of Europe's top 5 leagues in Portugal this time around. We have O Clássico in the Portuguese Primeira Liga with Benfica going to Porto away from home. This is always a monumental matchup here, and usually it's pretty close. Over the past few games, it has been, within 1 or 2 goals. This was not the case right here. Benfica got absolutely torn to shreds by Porto and ended up being 5-0 on the night. Absolute smashing victory for Porto there. The biggest victory in this fixture going back to, I think, 12 years in the past. Porto, just on the night, were by far the better team. And it's also a double-edged sword in the sense that Benfica was just really, really bad. Benfica had rarely anything going forward. I can't remember a single clear chance that they had. They had a few half chances in the first half, but it was really bad. Porto kept knocking on the door. They were having chance after chance after chance as the match started off. They eventually would score a bit of a scrappy goal from Galeno, but a goal that was inevitable nonetheless. They eventually scored right before halftime. And as the second half resumed, there was hope that Benfica would be able to bounce back, but it was more of the same as the first half. Porto just had chance after chance after chance. They eventually scored a third with Wendell. Very nice finish, but Benfica had optional defending there. Things went from bad to worse after Otamendi got a second yellow and was sent off. And then from that moment on, Benfica just gave up. They conceded a fourth. Really nice goal from Pepe, actually, the winger Pepe, not the center back Pepe. And then a fifth was added in stoppage time. Absolute just crazy performance from Porto, tons of goals, and just an abysmal performance from Benfica. And if you look at these two teams, there are two teams that are in very contrasting bouts of form. Obviously, Porto, they started off the season relatively disappointingly. It's not the worst season in the world that they've been having, but they've had some rough patches. But it seems they have turned the leaf. Of course, they had that monumentous win over Arsenal just 2 weeks ago in the Champions League. Compare that to Benfica. They've been having a very up and down season. They were top of the table for a while, and they were actually top of the table until this match here. They have been leapfrogged by Sporting now. Porto is in third place. It looks like it's pretty much out of the question that they're going to win the league, but they did their part to deny Benfica another league title, as it looks like. Benfica themselves are in Europe. They're in the Europa League, and while they did go through against Toulouse in the last round, it was a very, very dull performance from them. So, like I said, these are two teams in very different runs of form, and you can easily see that on the pitch with that victory there from Porto. But now let's move on to the Premier League. Let's move on to England. We have some good games to talk about here. First off, we had a matchup from Tottenham going up against Crystal Palace, which looked like it should be a pretty straightforward win for them. At the end of the day, it was. Now, that wasn't the case in the first half. Crystal Palace did grab the lead. They were leading for majority of the first half there, but Tottenham was able to bounce back in the second half with 3 goals. Very good performance in the second half there. Very good comeback performance there. Seeing some important goals from important players as well. Son getting on the clean sheet. He's not having the best season, but it looks like he's maybe bouncing back. You also had a goal from Timo Werner as well, which is important for him. Of course, the signing on loan. We also had a very, very late winner in the match between Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. This was a tough game for Liverpool, playing away from home at Nottingham Forest. It didn't look like they had much going forward. Obviously, they are going through a bit of an injury crisis, but it was Darwin Núñez who scored the winner in the 100th minute in stoppage time, 90 plus 10. It was a very, very important goal, and it ended up being a vital 3 points for Liverpool there. Also, in that same day, on Saturday, we had a draw between Brentford and Chelsea. 2-2 draw there. Very poor performance from Chelsea, in my opinion. I don't think that Chelsea is having a good season at all. Obviously, it's a very, very tough spot that they're in, and you can argue it's been an improvement from last season, but things really aren't getting much better for Mauricio Pochettino and his men. They were losing this game until a late equalizer, from Diassi there in the 83rd minute. Not a good performance from Chelsea, and they need wins. They really need wins, and they just can't get them. They keep bottling it. They have a lead and then they concede an equalizer, or they're just not mustering up enough to hold on to their leads or anything like that. It's just nothing is piecing together for this Chelsea team, and they played good in pockets, but they're not able to piece it together for the full 90 there. Moving on to Sunday, we had one of the biggest games of the weekend. We had the Manchester derby, Man City hosting Man United. This was a game that I would say most people would expect Man City to come away with the victory there, but of course they have slipped up a little bit this season so far. Overall, though, I think this was a very dominant win for City. United did score first. It was against the run of play. It was a beautiful goal from Marcus Rashford. One-touch finish, long shot from outside of the box. It hit the crossbar and went in. A very, very beautiful goal. I highly recommend looking it up and seeing it on YouTube if you have not seen the live game. But like I said, it was against the run of play, and then immediately after that, City had an onslaught of chances. Some chances that they really should have scored, and one in particular from Haaland, where the ball was there on a silver plate for him, and he tried to volley it, and it went skying over the bar. There was a few other chances there that City probably should have scored. They also had some chances that forced some good saves from Onana. But once the second half kicked on, it was more of the same from City. They just kept getting tons and tons of very serious chances in front of goal, and eventually it was Phil Foden who had an absolute man-of-the-match performance. He took the game by the scruff of its neck. He scored his own version of Rashford's goal. A very nice curling finish from outside of the box. No chance for Onana there. Tied it up 1-1. And then he combined with Julian Alvarez, who came off the bench, and with a really good finish. He dribbled past Onana, slotted it under his arm, and made it 2-1 to City. From that point on, there was basically no hope for United. Amrabat came off the bench, made a silly mistake, gave the ball away. Haaland had an easy chance to score, which he did to make it 3-1. And while that particular goal was from a silly mistake, I don't think United necessarily had a bad game. I think overall it was a decent performance, all things considered, especially when you acknowledge how bad they were at certain times of this season. But City was just by far the better team. City really clicked into form. We haven't seen City be this consistent throughout this entirety of this season compared to last year or the year before, but this match in particular, their best talent came out, especially when you see a guy like De Bruyne coming back from his long injury, and then Haaland back from his injury, and starting to ease back into the form that we all know he can reach. Like I said, this was just a simple fact of Man City being a far better team than United at this point. The last game that we're going to talk about in the Premier League, we had Sheffield United going up against Arsenal, and Sheffield is going through a really rough patch right now. They have not been playing all that well. On the flip side, Arsenal is a team in flying form in the league, at least. They have been dropping buckets and buckets of goals on their opponents. This game was no different. They dropped half a dozen goals on Sheffield here. A merciless 6-0 victory. It was 4-0 in the first half there. Absolute smashing victory from Arsenal. And they look like serious title contenders, I have to admit, with this great performance here. It's, of course, a matter of whether they can keep this up for the rest of the season, but if you look at the league table, Liverpool, with that vital 3 points, is still top of the table on 63 points after beating Nottingham Forest there, but after City beat United, they are only 1 point behind Liverpool in second place with 62 points, and then Arsenal is only 1 point behind Man City in third place with 61 points. So the title race is heating up. Of course, you still have the fourth place, which is up for grabs. Aston Villa is on 55 points, and then 5 points behind them on 50 is Tottenham in fifth place. So who knows? It's very possible that Aston Villa will hold on to that fourth place spot there, but the title race is now looking like a 3-horse race between Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. As we love to see it. We love to see a exciting title race between multiple teams. Now let's move on to La Liga. Let's move on to Spain. We had some pretty interesting matchups this weekend as well. The first game that we're going to look at, which occurred on Saturday, was Sevilla versus Real Sociedad. As I've talked about before on this channel, Sevilla have been having an absolutely terrible season, crashing out of almost every competition and fighting relegation at some points of the season. They've been having some pretty good results lately, and this match in particular, it looks like they are finally reaching some semblance of the form that they had last year where they won the Europa League. Now under managed Quique Sanchez Flores. Looks like things are piecing together. This was, I thought, probably their best performance all season. Maybe that performance that they had the second half against, I believe it was the second half against Real Madrid where they tied 1-1. They played pretty well. But this game, they came away with the win against Real Sociedad. And Nesri had a wonderful game. He's the type of striker that is a very good player, sometimes not the most consistent, but he'll pop up in the big moments for his club. He certainly popped up here with a good header in the first half there, and then only a few minutes later, an absolutely wonderful goal from a really tight angle that he has no business scoring from. He was able to grab a 2-0 lead for Sevilla. Sergio Ramos gave away a penalty in the second half, which Andre Silva put away, but Ramos made up for his mistake, scoring a pretty nice goal to make it 3-1 to Sevilla there. Sociedad did grab a consolation goal. A very nice finish from Bryce Mendes on the free kick, but it was too little, too late. Sevilla was the deserved winner here. And Sociedad, it's unfortunate. They had such a great year last year, and they had such a great opening half to the season, in particular in the European competition. But now it looks like the wheels are starting to fall off. It looks like this team's kind of reached its limits. Of course, they're heavily punching above their weight after that loss to PSG in the round of 16 of the Champions League, which was a very tough loss for them because, in my opinion, they were the better team. It looks like they've kind of just hit the brick wall there. Fatigue, mental fatigue, physical fatigue. It looks like it's starting to fall apart, unfortunately for them. Elsewhere, we had a crazy game also on Saturday between Getafe and Las Palmas. It ended up being 3-3, absolute goal fest there. Of course, we love to see games like that. There was a bunch of goals. It was, in fact, a comeback at one point. Munir, the Barcelona former academy player, had to score the equalizer there for Las Palmas to tie it 3-3. He also used to play for Getafe, interestingly enough. We also had one of the craziest games of the weekend, Valencia versus Real Madrid. Fun fact, Real Madrid actually wore one of their kits from last season, their purple away kit, because of a color clash. Fun little tidbit of knowledge there. But this match on the pitch was also very interesting. Valencia is a team this year. They're a very youthful team. In pockets, they've played very well. I think next season, this Valencia team could actually be one of the better teams in the Liga. They could be a serious team. And that bit of talent that they have showed in the first half there, where they raced to a 2-0 lead within 30 minutes. Granted, both of the goals that they scored were relatively lucky, in particular the second goal. Dani Carvajal accidentally passed the ball right to the Valencia striker there. But I will say, a lot of these chances that Valencia got from mistakes from Real Madrid, they did play a part in it, in the sense that their heavy press on Real Madrid forced them into those mistakes. It was a very fiery and passionate performance from Valencia in the first half. And on the flip side, it was a very lethargic and fatigued performance from Real Madrid there. Real Madrid did grab one in the end of the first half, right before halftime. Vinicius with a tap-in. Controversial goal for off the pitch reasons, technically, I guess you can say. The last time that Real Madrid played at the Mestalla, there was, of course, the whole incident with the crowd and Vinicius. So that had a whole, I guess you can say, a political undertone for the match here. Vinicius had a celebration in front of the fans. The fans weren't too happy about that. But into the second half, I think it was actually a very open game. Valencia trying to hold on to that 2-1 lead. They had some chances to make it 3-1, but then, of course, Real Madrid had some very serious chances themselves. They eventually would grab the equalizer. Very nice header from Vinicius to tie it 2-2. But It looked like Valencia were going to get a penalty in, I believe it was the 88th or 89th minute. Hugo Duro was taken down. It was looking like it was going to be a very possible 3-2 comeback win, I guess you can say, for Valencia. But the referee, Jesus Gil Manzano, who we'll get onto in a little bit, is the star of the night. He took away the penalty, I think correctly so. I think that it was a fair challenge. But from that moment on, Real Madrid went back in the other direction, and it looked like they had scored the winner. With seconds left on the clock, it was a corner. The ball got played out to the center after a clearance, went back into the box. Jude Bellingham scored a header. They started celebrating, but Jesus Gil Manzano blew the whistle and ended the game as the cross was about to be sent in. So technically, that goal did not count because the game had finished. The Real Madrid players were frustrated, understandably. They're yelling at the referee. Jude Bellingham, in the whole chaos, got sent off, actually. Now, Real Madrid are going to appeal this red card. As of right now, I don't think there has been an update on that situation there. But all the drama is focused around the referee, Jesus Gil Manzano. I personally think that if he's going to end the game, he should have called it, a little before. If he really wanted to end the match there, immediately after that corner was cleared, he should have called it. But if the ball is in play like that, you can't end the game when there's a clear goal-scoring opportunity like that. Now, of course, you can't let the play go on until someone scores. The clock is the clock, going to end the game. But I think the Manzano, I think he just handled it bad. Of course, though, that does not justify the reaction from the Real Madrid players there. There's no reason to shove the referee or curse at him or things like that. Some were saying that Carvajal also shoved the referee down to his face and said some things, but he did not get sent off. I don't think that necessarily means that Bellingham shouldn't have been sent off. That more so just means that Carvajal should have gotten a red card at that point as well. Absolute craziness there. Moving on to Sunday, we also had some big games in La Liga. Villarreal, who are bouncing back from a very poor start of the season, dropped 5 goals on Granada, scoring 5-1, which was the final score there. Great performance from them. We also had a big matchup between Atletico Madrid and Real Betis. Atletico Madrid is a team that is not in the best of form. They were able to grab a 2-goal lead, 2 scrappy goals relatively, but very important performance in the first half there, particularly for Alvaro Morata, who's coming back from injury, putting a stop to such a great season that he was having. Betis did have a late push. They scored 1 goal to have the deficit. Very nice goal to make it 2-1, but they were not able to equalize, and Atletico Madrid come away with a vital 3 points as they're fighting to get into the top 3. That possibility for them to get into top 3 was made a lot easier after Girona fell 1-0 to Mallorca. The season, which had been so far at this point miraculous for Girona, is looking like is kind of, falling back to reality, unfortunately for them. They have fallen to 3rd place here. Mallorca is a team that is pretty low in the table. They were fighting relegation at one point, but they are in the best form that they've been in all season. They just made the Copa del Rey final, putting in some very good performances in that competition here. So they're riding high on confidence, and then Girona is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, having some really tough games recently. In particular, that heavy loss to Real Madrid just a few weeks ago. We also had a big matchup between 2 teams fighting for top 4, I guess you can say, Athletic Club and Barcelona. And as exciting as this match may appear on paper, this couldn't be anything close to that on the actual pitch. This game ended 0-0. Very, very boring game. The closest that Barcelona got was a silly mistake from Unai Simon. He came out of goal, and then João Cancelo tried to chip the keeper from essentially the 50, but Uri, the center back for Athletic Bilbao, made a very, very impressive goal line clearance. Other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot of chances for either team. Poor offensive performance from both sides here, and it was an impactful performance in a negative sense for Barcelona, as they had 2 players go down through injury. I think the most unfortunate one to see is Pedri. He had just came back from a major injury. He's been struggling with injury for the past few years. And you can see when he had to hobble off the field, he was in tears. It looked like he re-aggravated that thigh injury that he had. Very, very sad scene. And then Frankie de Jong, who's been very important for Barcelona this season, one of their best players and most consistent performers, also got injured, which does not bode well for Barcelona going forward. And it was also disappointing when you just look at the opportunity that Barcelona had. Real Madrid dropped points, Girona dropped points. This was an opportunity for Barcelona to close the gap between Real Madrid, and if they wanted to have any hope of winning the title, which is already slim at this point, but they were not able to capitalize on that result there. So, speaking of the league table, we have Real Madrid in top spot still with 66 points. And then, Girona, I'm correcting myself from earlier. Girona is still in second place on 59 points. Pretty sizable gap. Then Barcelona in 58 points, only 1 point behind Girona there. And then Atletico Madrid in 55 points at fourth place. Now let's move on to Italy. Let's move on to Serie A. We had some feisty matchups here. We had, first off, on Friday, we had Lazio against Milan, a very exciting game, a game that I was looking forward to very much. And this game did deliver. There wasn't a whole lot of goals, but there was a lot of drama. In the first half, I thought that Lazio was the better team. I thought Milan actually had a pretty poor performance, but Lazio did not do enough to capitalize on the chances that were given to them. There was a close chance from Vecino off the corner, but other than that, they didn't really have all that much going forward. And even though Milan were playing pretty poorly, they still had a very close chance at the very end of the half with Christian Pulisic, who cut inside and had a really good finish that was saved by Provedel in goal. Into the second half, I think that it was, I guess you could say, more of the same. Lazio was the better team in terms of performance, but not by a country mile. But the match would be completely flipped on its head after a controversial incident where there was a foul, or it looked to have been a foul. The Lazio players were expecting the referee to blow his whistle. He did not. So, at just a fly, Pulisic had the ball. He continued dribbling with it, and then Pellegrini pulled Pulisic down, grabbed his shirt, yanked him to the ground, got a second yellow, and got sent off. At that point, it was completely flipped in terms of the way the match was going. Now you had Milan kind of reinvigorated with confidence. They were the ones going forward. They were grabbing some chances. But that wouldn't be it for the red cards. There would be 2 more red cards at the very end of the match. One from Marsavich, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, and another from Guendouzi. The second one, the second of those 3, was a second yellow, and then the Guendouzi red card was a straight red for pulling down Christian Pulisic again. Pulisic had a very good performance, even though he did not have any assists or goals. Just his threat on the pitch and how he was able to, basically lure the Lazio players into fouls there was very impactful for his team. Eventually, with just the man advantage, Milan were able to hobble over the finish line. A goal from Okafor, which was unfortunate to see from Provedel, because the way that the goal happened, it was a double save from Provedel, essentially. But the second shot from Okafor, he got a hand to it, but he was jumping in the opposite direction, wasn't able to get a clear hand to it, and it's trickled into the goal. I think a deserved win for Milan, just because you can't lose composure like that for Lazio. That is not a good look to have 3 players sent off to end the game with 8 players on the pitch. That is not a good return there. And it is also interesting because despite having the advantage over Bayern Munich in the Champions League, despite defeating Bayern Munich with a pretty admirable performance in this very stadium, Lazio have not won a game since. In fact, they've lost. They lost to Bologna, of course, and then now they lost to Milan. Very, very strange season that Lazio is having. We also had a bunch of goals by Roma. Roma looks to be in really good form after sacking Jose Mourinho and appointing Daniele De Rossi. And yet another really good performance from Dybala as well. And then also, it was Dybala on the score sheet and Dybala assisting another player, Lukaku, who was back to his goal-scoring forms after having a bit of a rough patch there. Moving on to Sunday, we had Bologna come away with another important win over Atalanta. Zirkzee scoring another important goal there. And then the highlight matchup of this match day was Napoli going up against Juventus. Two teams that are at different points of the season here. And Napoli, I think, had a lot of confidence going into this game, which is really interesting because they have not had, I guess, the best performances as of late. You could say the same thing about Juventus, but Juventus is, at least defensively, much more consistent. This was a game that was very back and forth. It was a very fun game to watch, one of the best games this weekend. Vlahovic had a whole host of chances in front of goal for Juventus. Some have been criticizing him for not scoring. I think the first chance that he had, the header that he missed, he probably should have scored, but all the other ones, it's hard to criticize him. The second one that he had, which chipped the post, I mean, what else can you do in that situation? It was a very tight angle. He chipped the goalkeeper. The ball just hit the post and painstakingly bounced out. The other shot there that he had in the first half was a long shot. While it was close, you don't really expect a player to score from there. And then in the second half, the other shot that he had was just a good save from the Napoli goalkeeper. On the other hand, Napoli also had some close chances as well. This game was, like I said, very back and forth. It was Napoli that would open the score, though. A very, very nice finish from Kvara, who had a great game, in my opinion. He looked like he was back in the form that he was in last year. The goal that he scored, the volley from outside of the box, hit it into the ground, sneaking it into the near post there, I thought was a beautiful finish. And it looked like Napoli was going to hold on to that 1-0 lead until Chiesa got on the ball and scored a absolute wonderful goal. A deceptively wonderful goal where he picked up the ball, looked like he was going to continue dribbling it, but he ended up just drilling it right into the lower corner there. As the commentator said, he had no business scoring from that angle, such a tight angle with so many players in between him and the goal, including the goalkeeper as well. But he was able to drag his team back, and it was anyone's game for the taking. Napoli had some chances, Juventus had some chances. There was also a possibility it could just end 1-1, which I think probably would have been fair, but Napoli was able to grab a penalty. Silly mistake at the defense there. They pulled down Osimhen with only a few minutes left on the clock. Osimhen stepped up and missed this penalty, actually, but the rebound fell to Raspadori, who was able to poke it into the top corner, winning it 2-1 for Napoli. Crazy game on the night, very fun to watch. If you have not seen the highlights, I highly recommend going and watching it. It was great to watch it live if you're able to watch the full 90 minutes there. On Monday, we had a big game between Inter Milan and Genoa. And this was a game that Inter Milan switched around their lineup a little bit. They were playing some of their bench players, but still, with that strong team mentality that they've had throughout the season, they were able to come away with a pretty admirable and professional 2-1 win over Genoa with 2 first-half goals, one from Aslani and one from Alexis Sanchez, his first goal in Serie A this season. He's scored in some of the other competitions, but this is his first goal in the league. And with that, let's take a look at the table in Serie A. And of course, Inter Milan is still on top now with a 15-point gap. I can remember going back maybe 2 months, and it was neck and neck with Juventus. And I remember saying, while it is very close on paper, it is only a matter of time before Inter Milan reel away with the lead here. If you look at the performances, Inter Milan is by far the better team. And now we are seeing that prophecy ring true. With that loss to Napoli and with their previous losses, including a loss to Inter Milan a few weeks ago, Juventus is on 57 points behind Inter Milan's 72. It is actually getting pretty close in the top 3. With that win over Lazio, AC Milan is on 56 points in third place, only 1 point behind Juventus. So it is heating up there in the top 3. And then Bologna solidified their place in the top 4 on 51 points. In fourth place there. Bologna under Thiago Motta are having a very good season. Not a whole lot of people are talking about that, but if they keep it up, of course, more attention will be drawn to them. Roma move up the table a little bit as well on fifth place, on 47 points, and then Atalanta are on 46 points on 6th, and then Napoli make 2 spaces or top 2 spaces up to go in 7th. Now, let's move on to Germany. Let's move on to the Bundesliga. We have some games we have to talk about here. First one we're going to talk about happened on Friday. We had Freiburg against Bayern Munich. And this was a game that some, including myself, were expecting Bayern to have a good performance. Looks like, I guess they would hope that the pressure would be off of them after Thomas Tuchel announced that he will be leaving at the end of the season. But we did not see that at all, especially in that first half there, as Bayern Munich were terrible in the first half. They got completely torn to shreds by Freiburg's attack. And of course, Freiburg is a good team. They're a team that have gone far in the Bundesliga. They've qualified for European competitions, but still, just with the swagger that they had, the confidence, the lack of fear, just finding the gaps between the fullbacks and the center backs for Bayern, just waltzing through the midfield there. This was not a good performance from Bayern defensively throughout the entire 90 minutes, of course, but in particular in that first half there. They eventually scored with a very nice volley. It was a very comical goal where the ball bounced off the post twice. It bounced off a few of the players, but eventually was stabbed into the back of the net with a really nice volley. Now, Bayern Munich would equalize with a very nice goal from Tell. And that was looking like it was the only way that Bayern Munich was going to get on the score sheet, was through the youth players. Tell and then Musiala had a really good game. Musiala would actually score himself to make it 2-1, but Freiburg would pop up again in the second half with another goal to make it 2-2 and deny Bayern Munich a vital 3 points. It is not looking good for Tuchel, and it's not looking good for Bayern. There is some rumors saying that if Bayern lose to Lazio again, or if they aren't able to turn the result around, they get eliminated, that they won't even wait to the end of the season, that he'll get sacked. Now, I don't know 100% the validity of those reports, but I don't think it is very surprising, actually, considering how bad Bayern Munich are. Of course, they went through some hiccups at the beginning of the season, but still, they were competent. They were still pulling together some good performances. They were still able to grab the win on most cases. That is not the case now. They are in free fall. They're in total collapse. Moving on to some of the other games, we had a win for Eintracht Frankfurt over Heidenheim. We also had a win for Borussia Dortmund over Union Berlin, Union Berlin looked to be somewhat turning around the season. Of course, they had a great year last year, and then this year they just could not handle the pressure of all the expectations, and they kind of fell apart a little bit, but it looks like they are slightly turning around, but they could not do enough to hold off Dortmund there. And Dortmund came away with that 2-0 victory. We also had a 4-1 win for Leipzig over Bochum, and then a smashing victory for Augsburg over Darmstadt. 6 goals they scored there. Moving on to the next day, we have Wolfsburg against Stuttgart. Lots of goals in this game. Stuttgart came away with a 3-2 win. Vital win for them as they're trying to hold on to that third place spot. And then we had a really good game between Cologne and Leverkusen, where Leverkusen came away with yet another victory, this time winning 2-0. For a very professional victory. It wasn't the easiest game, but it was still yet another good performance from there. 2 goals from 2 of the fullbacks there, Grimaldo and Frimpong, who in particular, both of those players are having wonderful seasons. And now let's move on to the table, speaking of Bayer Leverkusen, because they are top with 10 points. They are 10 points clear at the top of the table. 64 points, and then Bayern Munich in second place with 54 points. And then, like I said, Stuttgart's in third with 50 points. And then on 44 points in fourth place, you have Borussia Dortmund, and then behind them in fifth, RB Leipzig, and then Eintracht Frankfurt in sixth. Now, I don't want to jinx it, because it would be really cool to see Bayer Leverkusen win the league. But I will say, it would have to be one of the most miraculous comebacks that you will ever see if Bayern Munich are somehow able to win the league here. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Don't forget the 2002 season where it looked like Bayer Leverkusen were going to win the treble. They had everything locked on, and then eventually they did not win any of those trophies, actually. For the sake of enjoyment to see that there is a title race or actually competition for Bayern in the Bundesliga. Hopefully that does not happen again. but it remains to be seen, of course. Now let's move on to Ligue 1, the last league that we're going to look at here for this week. Let's move on to France. We had a pretty big matchup between Monaco and PSG. Usually this game produces goals, produces some great individual player performances, and in general, great games. This was not one of those games. This was a very boring game and ended up 0-0. This is a game that PSG didn't really need to win. So, of course, we haven't seen the best performances from PSG this season, and we weren't going to see it here, considering all those facts there. And then Monaco have been having a very inconsistent season themselves. They weren't able to muster up any type of threat to PSG for the most part. They were able to, keep it solid, keep it keep it close at the back. They were able to keep the clean sheet there, which is an admirable achievement, but still, like I said, overall, very disappointing game, especially when you consider how many great games we've seen between these two teams throughout the past few years. Elsewhere in Ligue 1, Marseille beat Clermont 5-1. Great performance there, in particular from Aubameyang, who I think quietly has been having a wonderful season ever since moving to Marseille this summer. And Lyon, unfortunately, we thought they had turned the league, turned a leaf and going in the right direction if you've been following Ligue 1, but unfortunately, they have took another turn to a very bad direction after this match here, losing 3-0 to Lens, which included a red card as well to them. Very poor performance there. It's looking bad, very bad for Lyon, unfortunately for them. Let's take a look at the league table. Speaking of Lyon, they are no longer bottom of the table. They're doing fine. Or they're doing much better. They're not doing fine, but they're doing much better than they were. But still, they are far from the top. They're in 11th spot there. Moving on to the rest of the table, we still have PSG top, of course, 55 points, and then Brest in second place and on 46 points, and then Monaco in third on 42 points. And I think this could be a very missed opportunity from Monaco in particular. If they had won this game and gotten 3 points instead of the 1, they would have made it really close at the top two. They would be in touching distance of Brest. But instead, they are closer to fourth. Lille is in 41 points, coming up on their tail. I think this was a very grave missed opportunity for Monaco there. Because remember, like I said, PSG pretty much wrapped up the league title. They aren't really playing for much there. They're focusing more so on the Champions League. Anyway, guys, that has been my total summary of all this action from the weekend here, looking at Europe's top 5 leagues as well as El Clásico in Portugal. Let me know all your thoughts and your reactions of what happened this weekend. We had some pretty big matchups between some heavy rivals, some pretty nice goals, some smashing victories, lots of goals from other teams as well. Let me know what was your favorite goal of the week. Let me know what was your best performance, your most fun, or in your opinion, what was the most fun game to watch? In my opinion, I think the Napoli Juve game was my personal favorite, and my favorite goal was that goal from Chiesa there. But of course, I'm biased because Chiesa is one of my favorite players. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. Don't forget to follow the Football Block on social media. But anyway, guys, I hope you have a nice rest of your night. Thank you very much for watching.